The stars were quiet that night. They always were in the deep black space between worlds. But somewhere in that silence, 47 alien warships moved like hungry wolves toward human territory. Supreme Commander Rothic stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was tall, even for a Valorian. His gray skin stretched tight over a face that had seen 100 wars. His 4 eyes scanned the darkness ahead with the confidence of a predator who had never known defeat. "How long until we reach the human colony?" he asked. "6 hours, Supreme Commander," his navigation officer replied. "The planet they call New Busan. Population 3 million. Rothic allowed himself a small smile. 3 million humans. Soft creatures with their weak bodies and short lives. The Valorian Dominion had ruled 1,000 worlds for 10,000 years. They had crushed species far more powerful than these newcomers to the stars. "They have no defense fleet in this sector," his tactical officer reported. "Our scouts confirmed it. The humans left this border completely open." "It's foolish," Rothic said, "but expected. They are children playing at being an empire. Today, they learn what real power looks like." The fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Massive dreadnoughts led the way, their weapons capable of turning cities to ash. Behind them came troop carriers, filled with Valorian soldiers eager for conquest. This was not just an invasion. It was a message to the galaxy. The humans had grown too bold, spread too far. It was time to remind them of their place. What Rothic did not know was that somewhere in the darkness, human eyes were watching. Admiral Do-Yeon Park sat in the command chair of the UEHC Indomitable, a cup of cold coffee in his hand. He had not slept in 36 hours. He had been waiting for this moment for 11 years. Admiral Lieutenant Yuna Choi said from her tactical station, "Valorian fleet has crossed into Sector 7 Black. 47 confirmed vessels." Wow. Do-Yeon set down his coffee. His face showed no surprise, no fear, only a calm that his crew had learned to trust over many years. "They took the bait," he said quietly. Yuna turned to look at him. She was young, barely 30, but she had earned her place on this ship through skill and determination. Still, there were things about this operation that even she did not fully understand. "Sir, should I alert the colony to evacuate?" Do-Yeon shook his head. "No need. The Valorians will never reach New Busan." He stood up and walked to the main display. The holographic map showed the enemy fleet as red dots moving through the void. They looked powerful, unstoppable. But Do-Yeon knew something that Rothic did not. Sector 7 Black was not undefended. It was the most heavily armed region of human space. The defenses were simply invisible. 11 years ago, a Valorian probe had entered human territory. Most species would have destroyed it or ignored it. Humans did something different. They captured it carefully, studied every piece of its technology, and then released it with its memory wiped clean. The Valorians never knew. Since that day, humanity had been preparing. They learned Valorian shield frequencies. They mapped their communication channels. They studied their tactics, their formations, their weaknesses, and they built weapons specifically designed to kill them. "Open a channel to Fleet Command," Do-Yeon ordered. The communication officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral," Do-Yeon spoke clearly and calmly. "This is Admiral Park aboard the Indomitable. The enemy has entered the trap. Execute Protocol Viper." Across 17 hidden stations scattered through the sector, lights began to blink on. These stations were built inside asteroids, disguised as dead moons, hidden in the radiation shadows of gas giants. To any scan, they looked like nothing. Just rocks and dust floating in space, but inside each one, weapons that officially did not exist began to power up. Railguns capable of firing projectiles at a fraction of the speed of light. Missile batteries loaded with warheads that could crack a planet's crust. And most importantly, communication jammers that would soon cut the Valorian fleet off from the rest of their empire. Do-Yeon watched the enemy fleet continue forward, completely unaware of what waited for them. "Contact Ghost Squadron," he said. "Tell Captain Kong to begin his approach." In the darkness between stars, 200 human ships received the order. They were small compared to Valorian dreadnoughts, but size was not their advantage. These ships were designed for one purpose: to kill without being seen. They ran cold. No engine signatures. No active sensors. No electromagnetic emissions of any kind. To Valorian instruments, they did not exist. They were ghosts drifting through the void. Patient and deadly, Captain Minho Kong commanded the stealth destroyer. Whisper from a bridge lit only by the soft glow of passive displays. His crew moved in silence, communicating through hand signals and whispered words. They had trained for this moment for years. All units confirm ready, his first officer, Commander Hannah Lee, reported. Ghost Squadron is in position. Minho nodded slowly. He felt no excitement, no nervousness. Only the cold focus of a hunter who had finally found his prey, back on the eternal dominion. Rotha continued to watch the stars ahead. He thought about the glory that awaited him. The Valorian High Council would praise his name. Songs would be sung of his conquest. The humans would kneel before the Dominion, as so many species had before them. He did not notice that his long-range sensors had stopped receiving signals from the relay beacons behind him. He did not realize that his fleet was now completely cut off from home. He did not understand that he had not invaded human space. He had walked into a cage, designed specifically for him. And somewhere in the darkness, Admiral Doyon Park finished his cold coffee and smiled. "Begin the hunt," he said. The trap was set. The prey was inside. And humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson that would echo through the stars for generations. Some borders should never be crossed. The Valorian way of war was simple. Show your strength. Crush your enemy with overwhelming force. Make them fear you before the first shot is fired. For 10,000 years, this strategy had worked. Empires had surrendered at the sight of Valorian fleets. Worlds had begged for mercy before a single soldier landed. Humans had a different philosophy, Captain. Minho Kong understood this better than most. He had grown up on stories of human history. The wars fought in jungles and mountains. The battles won not by the strongest army, but by the one that struck from shadows. His ancestors had survived occupation, invasion, and oppression. They had learned that the weak could defeat the strong if they were smart enough and patient enough. Now he would prove that lesson to the galaxy. The whisper drifted through space like a dead thing. No lights. No heat. No sign of life. Minho sat perfectly still in his command chair, watching the Valorian fleet through passive sensors only. These sensors did not send out any signals. They only listened. They caught the light reflected off enemy hulls, the heat bleeding from their engines, the radio waves leaking from their communications. To the Valorians, the whisper was invisible. Just another piece of debris floating in the endless dark. "Distance to nearest enemy vessel?" Minho asked in a whisper. Commander Hannah Lee checked her display. 12,000 kilometers in closing. They have no idea we are here. It's 12,000 kilometers. In space combat, that was close enough to touch. The Valorians would never expect an attack from this range. Their doctrine called for engagements at hundreds of thousands of kilometers, where their superior firepower could win the day. But the humans were not going to give them that chance. Minho opened a silent channel to Ghost Squadron. 40 ships waited in the darkness around him, each one as invisible as his own. They had spread out in a wide net surrounding the Valorian fleet without being detected. "All units," Minho said softly. "Target assignment confirmed. We strike on my mark. Remember the doctrine? No warnings. No mercy. No survivors who can report back." The words felt cold even to him, but he understood why they were necessary. If even one Valorian ship escaped to warn the Dominion, the enemy would return with 1,000 vessels. The only way to protect humanity was to make this fleet disappear completely. His weapons officer, Lieutenant Dong Yu-kyun, reported quietly. "Missiles armed. Targeting solutions locked. Ready on your command, Captain?" Minho watched the Valorian flagship on his display. The Eternal Dominion. A massive vessel bristling with weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. Its commander probably felt invincible right now. safe in the heart of his fleet, surrounded by 46 other warships. He was wrong, Minho said. 40 human ships fired simultaneously. The missiles launched cold with no engine burn. They drifted toward their targets in complete silence, invisible against the black of space. Only in the final seconds did their engines ignite, accelerating them to speeds the Valorians could not track. The first Valorian destroyer died without knowing it was under attack. One moment it was cruising forward in formation. The next 3 missiles punched through its shields and detonated inside its reactor core. The ship exploded in a ball of white fire that lasted only seconds before the vacuum swallowed it. Then another ship died, and another, on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. Alarms began to scream. Supreme Commander Rothick spun toward his tactical officer. "What is happening? Report." "We are under attack, Supreme Commander. Multiple ships hit." "I cannot locate the source of the missiles." "Impossible," Rothick roared. "Find them. Return fire." But there was nothing to fire at. The Valorian sensors swept across space and found only emptiness. No enemy ships. No weapons platforms. Nothing but the cold stars watching in silence. 3 more vessels exploded. Rothick felt something he had not experienced in a very long time. Fear. Not fear for himself, but fear of the unknown. He had fought 100 battles against a dozen species. He had always known his enemy. He had always been able to see them, measure them, destroy them. This enemy was invisible. "All ships break formation," he commanded. "Spread out and activate maximum sensor range. Find them." It was exactly what Minho wanted. The Valorian fleet scattered like startled animals, breaking their tight defensive formation. Ships that had been protecting each other were now alone in the dark. Easy targets. Ghost Squadron moved like predators through a herd of prey. They struck and vanished. Struck and vanished. Each attack came from a different direction. Each attack killed without warning. Lieutenant Dong Yuk fired another spread of missiles from the Whisper. 3 more hits confirmed. Enemy cruiser destroyed. 2 frigates crippled. Hannah tracked the chaos on her display. "They are trying to retreat toward the flagship." "Looking for protection?" Minho nodded. "Let them group up. It will make the second phase easier." Second phase. The part of the plan that would turn this battle from a victory into a massacre. Somewhere behind the Valorian fleet, the assault carrier Judgment moved into position. Major Taiwu Shin stood in the launch bay, surrounded by 500 Marines in black combat armor. They were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. Trained in zero-gravity combat, equipped with weapons designed to kill Valorians, and completely without mercy, Taiwu checked his rifle one more time. It fired rounds that could punch through Valorian body armor like paper. The ammunition had been developed using knowledge from that captured probe 11 years ago. Every weakness in Valorian biology had been studied and exploited. "Listen up," he said to his soldiers. "Ghost Squadron has done their job. The enemy is scared and confused. Now we go in and finish what they started. We board their ships. We kill their crews. We leave nothing behind." "Ah, Sergeant." Yoonji Beek stood at the front of her squad. She was small compared to most soldiers, but her eyes held a hardness that made even veterans uncomfortable. She had lost her family to a Valorian raid on a mining colony when she was 16. She had spent every day since preparing for this moment. "Sir," she said, "my team requests permission to lead the assault on the enemy flagship." Taiwu looked at her for a long moment. He knew her history. He knew what drove her. Some commanders would have worried about revenge clouding her judgment. But Taiwu had seen her fight. Her anger made her focused, not reckless. "Permission granted," he said. "Make them regret ever crossing our border." Yoonji smiled. It was not a warm smile. The launch bay doors opened, revealing the darkness of space and the distant fires of dying Valorian ships. Hundreds of micropods lined up for launch. Each pod held 4 Marines, cramped together in a shell barely larger than a coffin. "All units," Taiwu announced. "Launch in 60 seconds. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. And remember that tonight, we show the galaxy what happens when you trespass human space." Countdown began, and in the darkness, the Valorians had no idea that something far worse than missiles was coming for them. The micropods shot through space like bullets fired from a gun. They were small, dark, and completely invisible to Valorian sensors. Each pod carried 4 human Marines packed tightly together, their armor sealed against the vacuum of space. Sergeant Yoonji Beek felt her stomach drop as the pod accelerated toward the enemy flagship. Through her helmet visor, she could see the massive shape of the Eternal Dominion growing larger. Lights flickered across its hull as the crew scrambled to understand what was happening to their fleet. They would understand soon enough. 30 seconds to contact, the pod's computer announced in her ear. Brace for impact. Yoonji gripped her rifle tighter. The weapon was heavy, designed to fire armor-piercing rounds at a rate that would shred anything in its path. She had spent 3 years learning to use it. 3 years dreaming of this moment. The pod slammed into the Valorian hull with a sound like thunder. Magnetic clamps locked onto the metal surface. Immediately, a plasma torch built into the pod's nose began cutting through the armor. White-hot sparks flew in all directions as the torch burned a hole into the ship. Breach in 10 seconds, one of her squad members reported. Yoonji could hear alarms screaming inside the ship now. The Valorians knew they were being boarded. But knowing and stopping were 2 very different things. The torch finished its work. A circular piece of hull fell inward. Yoonji was the first one through. She dropped into a corridor lit by red emergency lights. The air was thin but breathable through her helmet filters. 2 Valorian soldiers stood 20 meters away, their large bodies frozen in shock. They had expected missiles and lasers. They had not expected enemies appearing inside their own ship. Yoonji did not give them time to react. She raised her rifle and fired. The rounds punched through their chest armor and sent them crashing to the ground. Purple blood splashed across the walls. Move, she ordered her squad. Secure the corridor. Her 3 squad members dropped through the breach behind her. Private John Suem took point, his heavy weapon sweeping left and right. Corporal Soman Park covered their rear with a precision rifle. Private Hyun Woo Cho carried the explosives they would need to cripple the ship. They moved fast through the alien corridors. The Eternal Dominion was huge, but Yoonji knew exactly where to go. Human intelligence had studied Valorian ship designs for years. They knew the layout better than some of the crew who served on these vessels. Command bridge is 6 levels up, she said. We take the maintenance shafts. Less resistance. They found a shaft access point and began climbing. The sounds of battle echoed through the ship now. Other boarding teams had breached at different points. Gunfire crackled in distant corridors. Explosions shook the hull as teams destroyed critical systems. Yoonji climbed faster. Supreme. Commander Rothick stood on his bridge, surrounded by chaos. His tactical displays showed disaster everywhere he looked. Ships exploding. Ships being boarded. Ships drifting dead in space with their crews slaughtered. Where are our reinforcements? He demanded. Signal the Second Fleet. His communication officer looked at him with 4 eyes full of fear. Supreme Commander, we cannot reach anyone. Our signals are being jammed. We are completely cut off. Rothick felt his heart pounding in his chest. This was not possible. The Valorian Dominion had never lost a fleet action. They had never faced an enemy who could strike from nowhere and disappear like ghosts. Then we fight with what we have, he said, forcing strength into his voice. Order all remaining ships to form a defensive sphere around my flagship. We will hold until we find a way to break through the jamming. It was a good plan. A reasonable plan. But it was already too late. The bridge doors exploded inward. Yoonji came through the smoke with her rifle blazing. The Valorian guards reacted fast, raising their own weapons and returning fire. Energy bolts screamed past her head, burning the air. She rolled behind a console and kept shooting. Junsu stepped through the door behind her, his heavy weapon roaring. The massive rounds tore through 2 guards and sent a third flying across the room. Soman followed, her rifle cracking with precise shots that found weak points in Valorian. Armor Rothick drew his sidearm and fired at the intruders. His shot hit Private Hyunwoo in the shoulder, spinning the young soldier around. But Hyunwoo did not fall. Human combat armor was strong. He grunted in pain, then raised his own weapon and returned fire. The firefight lasted less than a minute. When it ended, every Valorian guard on the bridge was dead. Rothick stood alone among the bodies of his soldiers. His sidearms still raised. He was wounded in 3 places, purple blood dripping down his uniform. But he refused to fall. He was Supreme Commander of the Third Fleet. He would die standing. Yonji walked toward him slowly. Her rifle trained on his chest. "We're the commander," she said. It was not a question. Rothick lifted his chin with the pride of a warrior who had never surrendered. "I am, and you are making a mistake, human. The Dominion will avenge this attack. They will burn your worlds and enslave your people. You cannot win against us." Yonji stopped in front of him. Behind her visor, her eyes were cold and empty. 11 years ago, she said quietly, your ships attacked a mining colony called Haven Station. You killed 4,000 civilians. Families, children, my mother, my little brother. Rothick showed no emotion. Acceptable losses in the conquest of inferior species? Yonji nodded slowly. "I thought you would say something like that." She raised her rifle. "My people have a saying," she said. "Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. You came to our space to kill and conquer. You will not leave." "My fleet will still escape," Rothick said. "Some ships will survive. They will warn the Dominion. You cannot stop them all." Yunji smiled behind her helmet. It was the same cold smile her commander had seen back on the Judgment. "No," she said. "They will not escape. Right now, teams like mine are uploading a virus into every navigation computer in your fleet. Your ships cannot calculate jump coordinates anymore. They are trapped here. All of them. And in about 20 minutes, the rest of our fleet is going to arrive and destroy every single one." Rothick's 4 eyes widened. For the first time, true understanding crossed his alien face. This had never been a battle. It had been an execution planned years in advance. "What are you?" He whispered, unpulled the trigger. "We are humanity," she said to his falling body. "And you should have stayed on your side of the border." She turned to her squad. "Virus uploaded. Bridge secured. Let's move." Behind her, the body of Supreme Commander Rothick lay still among the ruins of his command. He had come to human space believing he was a conqueror. He died discovering he was prey. The Valorian fleet was dying, from the bridge of the Indomitable. Admiral Doyon Park watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. Red dots that represented enemy ships blinked out one by one. Some exploded from missile strikes. Others went dark as boarding teams killed their crews. A few simply drifted, crippled and helpless, waiting for the end. 23 ships destroyed. 12 more crippled or captured. The remaining vessels had clustered together in a desperate defensive formation, their weapons pointing in all directions at enemies they could not see. "Ghost Squadron reports mission complete," Lieutenant Unichoi announced. "All primary targets eliminated. Enemy fleet is in full retreat toward the border." Doyen nodded slowly. Retreat. That was what the Valorians thought they were doing. In truth, they were just running deeper into the trap. "What about the boarding teams?" he asked. Major Shin reports all objectives achieved. Enemy flagship captured. Navigation virus uploaded to their network. Yuna paused, checking her display. He also reports that Supreme Commander Rothick is dead. Doyan felt nothing at this news. He had never met Rothick. He had no personal hatred for the alien commander. But the Valorian had chosen to invade human space, and choices had consequences. "Pull our boarding teams out," he ordered. "Tell them they have 15 minutes. "Yes, Admiral." Doyen turned to his communication officer. "Signal Hammer Group. Tell Commander Jang to begin his approach. It is time to end this." Far across the sector, hidden behind a shattered moon, Commander Wu Jinjiang received the order. He was a large man with a scarred face and hands that had seen decades of combat. Unlike Captain Minho of Ghost Squadron, Wu Jin did not believe in subtlety. His ships were not designed to hide, they were designed to destroy. Hammer Group consisted of 12 heavy cruisers, each one armed with weapons powerful enough to crack small moons. They had waited in silence for hours, watching the battle from afar, ready for this moment. All ships, Wu Jin announced over the fleet channel. Full power to engines. Weapons free. Leave nothing standing. The cruisers emerged from behind the moon like predators rising from sleep. Their engines burned bright against the darkness, visible to anyone watching. Unlike Ghost Squadron, they wanted to be seen. The surviving Valorians detected them immediately. New contacts. A Valorian sensor officer screamed on one of the remaining ships. 12 human warships approaching at high speed. They are targeting us. The Valorian captain, a young officer named Vareth, who had suddenly found herself in command after her seniors died, made a quick decision. Emergency jump. Get us out of here. It was the right call. The only possible hope of survival? Jump to faster than light speed. Escape this nightmare. But when the navigation officers tried to calculate jump coordinates, their screens showed only errors. Red warnings flashed across every display. The navigation computers had been infected with a virus that scrambled every calculation. No matter what they tried, the systems would not function. They were trapped. Vareth watched her display in horror as the human cruisers closed the distance. She understood now what had happened. This was not a battle. It was not even a war. It was a carefully planned execution, and she was next. Weapons, she said quietly. Target the lead human ship. If we die fighting. Her crew obeyed. Energy cannons charged to full power. Missile tubes opened. The remaining Valorian ships turned to face their attackers. Wu Jin saw the enemy formation shift and smiled grimly. They had courage, he thought, facing death with weapons in hand. Part of him respected that, but respect would not save them. All ships, fire, he commanded. Hammer Group unleashed everything at once. Railgun rounds crossed the distance at impossible speed, punching through shields and armor like they were made of paper. Missiles followed in swarms, their warheads designed specifically to bypass Valorian defenses. Energy weapons burned through hulls and cooked crews alive. The Valorians fired back. They hit 3 of Wagon's ships, causing damage that would take months to repair. One cruiser lost its main engine and had to withdraw. But the human ships kept coming, kept firing, kept killing. Captain Vareth died when a railgun round punched through her bridge and decompressed the entire deck. She never saw it coming. One moment she was giving orders. The next, she was gone. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, not a single Valorian ship remained operational. Some floated as burning wrecks. Others had been torn apart so completely that only debris remained. A few had tried to surrender at the end, but their communication systems were jammed along with everything else. Their final messages never reached human ears. Admiral Do-Yan watched the last red dot disappear from his display. Status report, he said calmly. Strategic analyst Jihono ran through the numbers. All 47 enemy vessels destroyed or captured. Human casualties. 83 dead. 212 wounded. 1 destroyer lost. 3 cruisers damaged. The operation is complete. 83 dead. Do-Yan felt the weight of those numbers. Each one was a person with a family, with dreams, with a life cut short. He would write letters to every family personally. He always did. But those 83 lives had saved millions. If the Valorian fleet had reached New Busan, 3 million colonists would have died or been enslaved. This was the math of war. Terrible numbers balanced against worse ones. Begin recovery operations, he ordered. Collect our dead. Salvage what we can from enemy vessels. And make sure there are no survivors who can report what happened here. Una hesitated. Sir, the enemy crews who survived. There are no survivors, Do-Yan said quietly. By the time we finish, there will be no evidence that this fleet ever existed. No ships, no bodies. No records. The Valorian Dominion will wonder what happened to their third fleet. They will send probes and scouts. They will find nothing but empty space. Una understood. This was not cruelty. It was strategy. The unknown was more terrifying than the known. An enemy you could see and measure was an enemy you could fight, but an enemy who destroyed your fleet and left no trace? That enemy haunted your nightmares? And the message? Yuna asked. Are we still sending it? Doyan nodded. In 3 weeks, when they have had time to worry, when they have imagined 1,000 terrible possibilities, then we show them exactly what happened. And we show them what will happen again if they ever cross our border. He turned away from the display and walked toward his quarters. He needed sleep. He needed food. He needed time to process what they had done today. But first, he needed to start writing those letters behind him. In the darkness of space, human ships moved through the wreckage of the Valorian fleet. They collected debris, recovered bodies, erased every trace that 47 warships had ever existed. By morning, the sector would be empty and quiet again, as if nothing had ever happened at all. 3 weeks of silence, in the capital city of the Valorian Dominion. Supreme Chancellor Voreth paced the halls of the High Council chamber. He had not slept well since the Third Fleet stopped responding to communications. 47 ships, 15,000 soldiers. One of their greatest commanders, all gone without a trace. Search parties had been sent. They found nothing. Not a single piece of debris. Not a single distress signal. Not a single body floating in the void. The Third Fleet had simply vanished as if it never existed. Rumors spread through the Dominion like a disease. Some said the humans had developed a super weapon that could erase ships from reality. Others whispered about ancient horrors lurking in that region of space. A few even suggested that the Third Fleet had defected. Turning traitor to join the enemy, Voreth knew none of these theories made sense, but he had no better explanation. Perhaps we should send another fleet, one of his advisors suggested during their daily meeting. A larger one. 50 ships. 100. Enough to overwhelm whatever the humans have. Voreth shook his head. And lose another 100 ships. No, we wait. We watch. Something will reveal itself. It did. The transmission arrived exactly 21 days after the Third Fleet crossed into human space. It came through official diplomatic channels, marked with the seal of the United Earth Human Commonwealth. Every screen in the council chamber flickered as the message began to play. The recording showed chaos. Valorian ships exploding. Missiles appearing from nowhere. Energy weapons slicing through hulls. Soldiers being cut down in their own corridors. The footage was taken from Valorian security cameras. Captured by human boarding teams and transmitted back, Voreth watched in horror as ship after ship died. He saw the bridge of the Eternal Dominion overrun by humans in black armor. He saw Supreme Commander Rothix standing alone among his fallen guards, defiant to the end. He saw a human soldier raise a rifle and fire. Then the footage cut to a single human face. Admiral Doyan Park sat in a command chair, his uniform neat, his expression calm. He looked directly into the camera with eyes that held no warmth, no mercy, no fear. You entered our space believing us weak, he said. You studied our history but ignored our nature. You saw our wars and thought us violent but primitive. You measured our weapons and found them inferior. You were wrong. The Admiral leaned forward slightly. Humanity does not wait for war to come to us. We do not build defensive walls and hope the enemy turns away. When we identify a threat, we eliminate it completely, totally, without hesitation, and without mercy. Behind him, a display showed the final moments of the Valorian fleet. Ships burning. Ships dying. Ships being torn apart by weapons they never saw coming. Your Third Fleet is gone, Doyan continued. Not captured. Not disabled. Gone. Every ship, every soldier, every record. We have erased them from existence. The galaxy will wonder what happened. They will tell stories and spread rumors. And when you consider sending another fleet, you will remember this. You never saw us coming. You never heard us approach. Your scanners found nothing but empty space until it was too late. He paused, letting the words sink in. We do not want war with the Valorian Dominion. We have no interest in your worlds or your people. But understand this clearly. Human space is protected. Cross our border again, and we will do the same thing we did to the Third Fleet. Not because we hate you. Not because we want revenge. Simply because that is what we do to those who threaten our people. The Admiral sat back in his chair. We are watching you now. We have been watching you for years. We know your fleet positions, your communication codes, your weapons, your weaknesses. If you doubt this, remember that we captured your probe 11 years ago, and you never knew. We have been preparing for this moment since before your commanders were born. His final words came slowly, clearly, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Do not test us again. By the time you realize your mistake, we will have already struck, and there will be nothing left to warn those who come after. The transmission ended. Silence filled the council chamber. Voreth stared at the blank screen, his mind racing to process what he had just seen. The Third Fleet destroyed in a single night. 15,000 soldiers killed without a single one escaping to report back. Weapons and tactics that made Valorian technology look primitive. And they had been watching. For 11 years. Learning, preparing, building weapons specifically designed to kill Valorians.
Chancellor?
One of his advisors said carefully. What are your orders? Voreth thought about his options. He could send another fleet, a larger one, to avenge this humiliation. But what if the humans had more traps waiting? What if they had been preparing for exactly that response? How many ships would he lose before he accepted that these creatures were not prey? He thought about the look in the human admiral's eyes. There was no anger there. No hatred, just cold calculation. The humans had not destroyed the Third Fleet out of rage or fear. They had done it because it was efficient, because it sent a message, because it was the logical thing to do. That terrified him more than anything else. Close the border, Voreth said finally. Pull all our ships back to a safe distance. No patrols within 10 light years of human space. Chancellor, that will look like weakness. The other species will talk. Let them talk, Voreth replied. Better to appear weak than to lose another fleet to an enemy we cannot see. The humans have made their position clear. We will respect it. He walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Millions of Valorians went about their daily lives, unaware of what had happened in distant space, unaware that their empire had just been humbled by creatures they had dismissed as inferior. This is not over, he said quietly. The Dominion has ruled for 10,000 years. We have outlasted greater threats than humanity. But for now, we will wait. We will watch. We will learn. He turned back to his advisors. We will remember what they taught us today. Some borders should not be crossed. Some enemies should not be awakened. The humans are one of them. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet called Earth, Admiral Doyen Park returned to his normal life. His name never appeared in news reports. The battle was never officially acknowledged. To the public, it was just another quiet day in a peaceful universe. But in the dark corners of human space, the truth spread in whispers. The Valorians had come, and the Valorians had died. Not one ship escaped. Not one soldier survived to tell the tale, and across the galaxy. In the trading posts and meeting halls where different species gathered, a new phrase entered the common language. A warning passed from merchant to pilot to diplomat to spy. Do not trespass human space. By the time you realize your mistake, they will have already struck again, and by then, it will be far too late.